You spent thousands building the perfect underground shelter, steel doors, food stockpiles, generators. But what if the very place you trust to protect you is actually sealing your fate? Daniel believed preparation created safety. That belief guided Daniel for years while designing and building the bunker. Every system inside it existed for a reason. The air filtration system ensured clean breathing conditions. The power system ensured independence from the outside grid. The food and water reserves ensured long-term sustainability. Daniel wasn't relying on luck. Daniel was relying on planning. When the moment came to finally use the bunker, Daniel followed the plan exactly. The door closed securely, sealing off the outside environment. Inside, everything worked as expected. The lighting remained steady, the air remained clean, and the temperature stayed controlled. Daniel felt relief knowing the environment was stable and predictable. During the first several days, Daniel remained focused and disciplined. Daily routines helped maintain structure. Daniel checked the systems every morning, recorded supply levels, and exercised regularly to maintain physical health. The bunker felt like a controlled environment where nothing unexpected could interfere. But over time, Daniel began to notice something that wasn't part of the original plan. Nothing inside the bunker changed. The environment stayed exactly the same every day. There were no new experiences, no new challenges, and no new information. At first, this stability felt reassuring, but gradually it started affecting Daniel's motivation. Daniel realized that life inside the bunker wasn't progressing forward, it was being preserved in place. The bunker protected Daniel from outside uncertainty, but it also removed the sense of progress that normally gives people purpose. Without change, time began to feel different. Daniel had built the bunker to protect against external threats, but Daniel had never fully considered how long-term isolation would affect mental clarity, motivation, and decision-making. The bunker solved the problem of immediate safety, but it introduced a new problem that was harder to recognize. The longer Daniel stayed inside, the more Daniel began to understand that survival involved more than protection. It involved adaptation. And adaptation requires interaction with changing conditions, not separation from them. Daniel had carefully calculated how long the supplies would last. Every item had been measured, organized, and stored efficiently. The food reserves were large, and the water supply was sufficient for long-term use. Daniel felt confident knowing that these resources existed. However, the psychological reality of using supplies felt different from planning them. Each day, Daniel consumed a portion of the stored food and water, even though the total amount remained large. The act of using the supplies made their limits feel more real. Daniel began thinking differently about consumption. Instead of focusing on comfort, Daniel focused on preservation. Meals became smaller and usage became more cautious. This change wasn't caused by immediate shortage, but by the awareness that supplies could not be replaced. The bunker created independence from outside systems, but it also created total dependence on internal reserves. Daniel realized that everything inside the bunker was finite. No new resources were entering the system. Everything depended on careful management. This awareness created subtle pressure. Daniel began thinking further into the future, questioning how long the supplies would truly last under real conditions. Even small changes in usage could affect long-term sustainability. This realization introduced uncertainty. Daniel had prepared thoroughly, but preparation could not eliminate limits. The bunker provided temporary independence, not permanent self-sufficiency. Many people assume stockpiling supplies solves survival permanently, but supplies only extend time. They do not eliminate the need for adaptation or external interaction. Daniel began to understand that supplies were not a permanent solution. They were a temporary advantage, and the bunker depended on several mechanical systems to maintain a stable environment. The air filtration system ensured clean breathing air. The power system ensured lighting and system functionality. The water system ensured safe consumption. These systems worked reliably at first. Daniel performed regular checks and confirmed that everything functioned correctly. However, Daniel understood that mechanical systems experience wear over time. One day, Daniel noticed a slight change in the sound of the air system. The system was still functioning, but the sound was different from before. This change was small, but it reminded Daniel of an important reality. Mechanical systems require maintenance. Even well-built systems cannot operate indefinitely without attention. Daniel inspected the system and confirmed that it still worked properly, but the moment introduced a new layer of awareness. Inside the bunker, Daniel was fully responsible for maintaining every system. There were no external technicians and no replacement parts beyond what had already been stored. This meant Daniel's survival depended not only on preparation, but on ongoing system stability. The bunker was not a static object. It was an active environment that required continuous maintenance. Daniel realized that the bunker's strength depended on the reliability of its systems, and those systems depended on Daniel's ability to maintain them. Preparation reduced risk, but it did not eliminate it. Daniel had expected physical challenges, but the mental effects of isolation were more subtle. Without new conversations, new environments, or new experiences, Daniel's mental stimulation became limited. At first, Daniel stayed disciplined and focused on routines, but over time, the lack of new input began affecting mental sharpness. Days felt similar to each other. Without variation, time felt compressed. Daniel noticed that focus required more effort, motivation fluctuated. Tasks that were once automatic required more conscious effort. This wasn't caused by weakness, it was caused by the environment. Human cognition depends on stimulation, interaction, and variation. Without those elements, mental energy naturally declines. If you're finding this perspective useful, subscribe now because most survival myths ignore the mental side completely. Daniel understood that the bunker protected physical safety, but created mental challenges that preparation alone could not solve. The bunker removed chaos, but it also removed stimulation. And stimulation is necessary for long-term performance. Daniel had no reliable information about outside conditions. Communication systems provided no consistent updates. Without external information, Daniel had no clear timeline. This created uncertainty. Daniel did not know whether outside conditions were improving, stabilizing, or remaining unstable. Without information, decision-making becomes more complex. Daniel could not determine the optimal time to leave or remain inside. The bunker provided safety, but it also limited awareness. Daniel realized that isolation reduced access to knowledge, and knowledge is essential for adaptation. Without accurate information, Daniel could only rely on assumptions. And assumptions introduce risk. Daniel began to understand a critical truth. Survival is not just about protection. It is about adaptation. Adaptation requires interaction with changing environments. It requires observation, adjustment, and learning. Inside the bunker, conditions remained constant. While this provided safety, it limited opportunities to adapt. Daniel's physical strength could be maintained through exercise, but adaptation involves more than physical strength. It involves awareness and responsiveness. The bunker preserved Daniel's condition, but preservation is not the same as growth. Growth requires exposure to change. Daniel realized that long-term survival required more than isolation. It required engagement with reality. Daniel stood near the bunker door and considered the situation carefully. The bunker had fulfilled its purpose. It had provided safety during instability. It had extended Daniel's available time. But Daniel understood that the bunker was never meant to be permanent. It was a temporary solution designed to provide protection during uncertainty. Daniel realized that long-term survival would eventually require stepping beyond the bunker. The bunker could delay exposure to risk, but it could not eliminate it permanently. Daniel understood that preparation provided advantage, but adaptability determined long-term success. The bunker was part of survival, not the entirety of survival. Daniel had entered the bunker with confidence in preparation. The bunker provided protection, stability, and time. It reduced immediate danger and created a controlled environment. But over time, Daniel learned that survival involves more than protection. It involves adaptation, awareness, and decision-making. Comment your answer and watch the next video to understand the biggest survival mistake most people make after preparation.